everyone. I'm Mackenzie Lane from the Burbank International Film Festival, and today we're continuing our interview series Beyond the Frame with filmmakers Bobby and Aaron Weiss. They directed one of this year's official feature film selections, a documentary titled Song of the Cicada. The documentary follows an eccentric mortician named Dale Carter over the course of a decade in the coastal town of Galveston, Texas. And I'm so excited to be speaking with Bobby and Aaron today. Hi, guys.
Hi. Hi there.
Thank you so much for being here. How are you, and where are you tuning in from?
I am tuning in from Dallas, Texas. I'm just finishing up my workday, actually, where I teach at a private school here called Hockaday. It's an all-girls school where I teach filmmaking and studio art, and excited for this interview today.
I'm Aaron, and I'm tuning in from Austin, Texas. And yeah, thanks for having us.
Well, thank you for being here. I personally love this film. I was blown away. For people who might not be familiar, tell us about this film.
Well, the film follows Dale Carter, and as you mentioned, it took about 10 years to make the film, so a lot unfolded in that 10 years. We always thought we were going to wrap up the film sooner, but exciting things kept happening. Good things and bad things kept happening in Dale's life, and we just continued going. But it's a story about a man and his collection and his strange friends and his navigation of the funeral world and the spirit world and all of these things that kind of culminate in a portrait of a man who's trying to search for something and find something. And that takes him through several different scenarios, one of which is he's trying to save a Victorian house that was given to him essentially as a gift. And he's also trying to put together the pieces of things that kind of fall apart throughout the film.
You know, this started initially as Bobby saying, "Hey, I've met this guy. He's a real true character. Let's make a short film. Let's spend a weekend with him and see what comes out of it." And we spent less than 48 hours with him, and we were able to assemble a cut that was around 10 minutes. Just from spending time with him in his laboratory and driving around town and hearing his philosophies on life and death, and just his collection in his home, which is pretty spectacular. But this 10-minute film we started showing to people, and they were just blown away. So we knew we had something special initially. We went back probably the next year, like maybe a year later, spent some more time with them. And then a couple years into the process, we got a grant from the Austin Film Society, and that gave us the confidence to turn this into a feature film. So at that point, we had 30 minutes of edited material, and then really took the leap to turn this into a feature, which is a huge undertaking. But we didn't think of it as a positive thing at the time that it took 10 years. But now looking back, the story evolved and needed that much time for us to spend with him for it to really turn into what it is.
Didn't you meet him on like Halloween night or something?
I was a photographer at a Halloween ball that happened in Galveston, Texas. And I was pointed out to him by a friend, said, "You've got to meet this guy." And he was wearing like a wool cloak and an old hat and a monocle. So I went over and I said, I told him what I did, that I was a teacher, and he said that he was the local undertaker. And I was fascinated right then because I'm a painter and a figure drawer. And so I wanted to see if maybe I could study in his laboratory, even though it's not really a medical situation. It's more funerary. But he allowed me to, basically work as his student for a few nights and draw in his laboratory. And that kind of sparked the thing where I called Aaron and I said, "Oh my gosh, you got to come down here and we've got to film this guy and make something out of this." And that 10-minute piece ended up being my master's thesis project that went along with some paintings that I was doing. And as Aaron was saying, like, people not only responded to it, but I had people that we had never met calling and wanting to schedule a meeting with me to talk about the film. They had maybe lost a loved one in their life recently, and the film they found really cathartic. And I think that's what's interesting, is people are really connect with this person because they really believe in his journey that he goes through in this film, which has been really exciting, especially as it turned into a feature-length film and we could get into a lot of more of the nuances of his life.
I mean, it's a little intimidating to watch a movie like that because people don't necessarily want to like hang out in an embalming room, but it's so much more than that. He's such a charming, lovely person. And I actually laughed a ton while watching it. And I left feeling like warm and fuzzy inside, and like funeral homes are like less scary and weird to me. He like brought so much like light and love into that place. So
That's
Well
great to
said.
hear. I mean, we never really got comfortable in the laboratory either, as much time as we spend in there. Yeah, I mean, Dale makes you feel like and allows you to know that there's people behind the scenes who really care, and that's what I think is really cathartic is knowing that when you have a loved one that dies, there's someone like Dale who can really, shepherd you through the journey.
It was weird every
No.
time we went there, every single time. I think, I don't know if about Aaron, but I remember us leaving. We'd only be in there for 2 hours or an hour filming, and my back would hurt, and I'd just be extremely exhausted, like energetically from being in there. It's very intense. But like Aaron was saying, like Dale brings a levity to the whole thing that makes it okay, and a real experience. I mean, you really feel. The first time I ever went in there, he gave me the whole speech, like, do you what you're going to see is going to change you forever. Do you want to proceed? And I thought he was being overly dramatic about it, but he was completely true about it. I mean, it really is. You're looking behind, he calls it the formaldehyde curtain, and you can't really prepare yourself for that. I don't think that comes across in the film by any means, I think, but it is an intense workspace, and it's not for everybody. And I asked Dale, like starting, I said, are other morticians as eccentric and strange as you? And he said, surprisingly, no. They're mainly normal people. Dale is the exception. I mean, he's a philosopher and a historian, and he gets charged up by a challenge, as his boss says in the film. I mean, in the film, his boss talks about it, but he will spend 3 days basically rebuilding somebody's face so that they can have an open casket because the family asked for it. And he's one of maybe 10,000 embalmers that would even do something like that. I mean, it's a huge challenge. He doesn't get paid extra for it. He does it for the families, and he still does it. I mean, he really puts an extra time and work on those people.
One thing I really wanted to ask you is what inspired you to title the documentary Song of the Cicada? I have my theories, but it's never directly addressed in the film. So I was dying to ask you that.
It had a different working title for a while. And we went to Dale and we said, if you could name your film or rename it, what would you call your film? And without hesitation, he said Song of the Cicada. And we looked it up, and there was like a poem written called Song of the Cicada, but there was only one mention, and it was like not a big deal. And we thought it was a really interesting title, and we had to go back and kind of think about it. He was kind of cryptic about what it could mean, but we started thinking about it and realizing that cicadas bury themselves, and after a length of time, 10 years or 15 years, which it took us to make this documentary, it emerges and comes out of the ground, and it presents itself as a winged animal. And it also makes a very eerie, weird noise that's known very much in the South, which we find comforting, but others might not, and Dale tends to, we kind of joke, but he makes a big noise too. And he's somewhat creepy as well too. So we kind of think it's interesting like that too. But it's also interesting how they shed their skins and, all those sorts of things. It's also, our production company is called Southern Gothic Productions. And I don't think there's anything more Southern Gothic than the sound of like locusts in the air at night, or cicadas. So we're obsessed with, Southern Gothic kind of themes, and maybe in the future we'll continue on interviewing more people in the South about their strange habits and things like that.
How long did it take post-production, everything all together?
We were editing along the way. So, when we finally got the momentum to turn it into a feature film, then we would visit Galveston twice a year, sometimes 3 times a year. Sometimes we would just go there to edit for a week at a time, and then we would kind of figure out what pickup shots we needed to get. We honestly thought we'd be done with this many years ago, but we just kept at it until we really had the full storyline, and we knew that emerged. Along the way we had 40-minute cuts, 50, 60-minute cuts, and at one point we had like a almost 90-minute cut. And then let's see, about 2 years ago we were introduced to an editor named Paul Lovelace, and he was a perfect fit for this film. Bobby and I have been shooting and editing this thing ourselves, and we were just a little too close to the material and couldn't shape it exactly to what we knew the potential could be. So Paul Lovelace was able to really come in and spend a few months with it and we worked hand in hand with him to get it to where it is now.
We knew he was the right fit because he had edited the film Iris, about Iris Apfel, the fashion icon. It was a Maisel brother film. Well, Albert was the one living who made the film. So we knew we were in good hands because he would understand cinema verite, although we weren't necessarily going that direction completely, but he would understand how to craft. a story like that. And he was amazing. I mean, he spent, I think, what, 5 weeks working on it after we had put a solid heap of work into it and really shaped it into something incredible. I would advise any filmmaker who's getting stuck, or it's not necessarily cheap to hire an editor, but it's an amazing opportunity to work and collaborate with somebody else who's got a fresh eye for something.
How long were you filming during the pandemic, and what was that like?
Early on in the pandemic, we were going to wrap the shooting, but we started realizing, like, we would call Dale or he would call us and say, I embalmed my 100th COVID patient today. And we're like, are you wearing PPE gear? You taking care? Like, he's like, oh yeah, I'm wearing a face shield and everything. And he was working for this funeral home in Houston as well. And he said it was just nonstop. He said, this is like a plague, I mean, this is like a real situation, and people are dying. And so hearing that aspect of it, because, you hear about the first responders, but you don't hear about the people who have to deal with the aftermath of people who die from COVID, especially people that are county bodies that have no next of kin and other things like that. And he put the same care and effort he did into everybody, into the COVID patients as well, too, embalming them and putting makeup on them and doing their hair, even though they had a closed casket and all that stuff. So, but that was really intense for us. I mean, we were decked out in PPE gear too. And we were, I mean, everybody was scared at that point in time. So we had rigged up cameras to be on the outside of his car, so we didn't have to be in the car with him. And we would, go into the funeral home quickly and shoot and get out and all that. But it was interesting. I mean, really hearing his perspective on that. We were hoping that he could retire, but he said that he would, he was called to do this, and he was going to serve people and help people in a time of need, which is very poignant for us.
He was one of the only morticians who was, in the area, who was willing to work on these bodies. And yeah, like he felt called to duty. And for us, it was kind of the closure we needed for the story to really, kind of button it up for the time being. Obviously, we could have kept following him forever, but we needed a little bit of closure to help round out the story.
Yeah, he was super cool. I mean, he would say, I want you to sculpt this as you see fit. I trust you both, and he wouldn't even harp on the trusting part. I mean, he just knew that we were having fun and making something serious, and was happy to be a part of that. And I think he felt a little bit like a celebrity. He'd take a phone call, we're there, and he'd say, the film crew is here filming me. I must go, so.
I love that. Well, there's probably just like such a level of trust between you all, and a friendship from him opening up his whole entire life and world to you. And you mentioned rigging the camera up outside of his car. There's so many gorgeous, incredible shots in this, like him walking on the beach and his cloak. Where was some of the inspiration for some of those shots? And he seems like such a creative person. I'm curious, like, if he made creative suggestions throughout the filmmaking process, like cinematically or poetically, aside from the title.
I'll feel this one because Aaron was the cinematographer, and he's like the most amazing cinematographer. So a lot of it's like miracles that would happen, like the way the sun was at that evening. That was one of the first shots we ever shot, was him with a cloak on the beach, and it was like the clouds parted beautifully. But also, Aaron's technique and attention to his craft, and knowing exactly how his camera worked, meant he was always ready all the time. We would show up, we'd put wireless microphones on people, tell them not to talk to us until we were ready to shoot. And he and I worked together very quickly and very efficiently together. Obviously, I teach filmmaking. He's done stuff on his own for these nonprofit organizations for years. So the two of us are like a super team of just being able to get in and get out and not have a bunch of commotion with other people behind the set and all that stuff. So
Dale definitely had, he's an artist, and he had a lot of creativity and creative ideas, input on the film. He, side note, he from the beginning, he didn't want to see any footage. He didn't want to see any cut of the video of the film until the premiere, and that's what happened. He didn't watch any cuts of the film until it premiered at the Austin Film Festival last year, and he was blown away. But every step of the way, he would have input. He was curious, how we felt about it. Certainly, there's a lot of shots that we thought out and scheduled and planned for, and a lot of those turned out really nicely in the film. But a lot of them, the majority of them, just kind of happened, and things evolved, and we found ourselves in beautiful situations where the weather, just kind of was perfect. The perfect scene created the perfect scene for what we needed.
Yeah, like a normal drone operator would wake up and it's foggy and say, "Oh, this is terrible," and it worked perfectly for us, for our film. We were just like, "Oh, the fog is the best thing ever with a hearse rolling through this fog." So I mean, it was just stuff like that would happen accidentally, and we just couldn't have asked for anything better. It was pretty amazing.
So not only does the film have incredible cinematography, it has an amazing score. How did that come about?
So the music was done actually, like I think pretty soon after we started shooting, we made a short one, and we got together with my good friend Max Townsley, who lives here in Dallas, and he composed the music to that. I think he came up with some ideas, and he really thought about it beautifully because he was thinking thematically throughout the film. So there's like the similar melodies that occur during certain times in the film that are these amazing, almost like Pavlovian things that come up in the film, because sometimes you even hear the music and you know where the film's going with it. But Max is a brilliant composer, and he played every instrument on it, wrote all the music originally, and then made changes whenever we needed changes in the film too. He was spectacular to work with.
What was it like for you all personally making this film, and how did it impact you?
Watching how this has affected Dale has been the most interesting for me to see, because after the screening, his whole family was there. And I called him a few weeks later after the buzz had died down a little bit, and he said, "My family's treating me differently now. There's like a level of respect that I haven't received before." And I think, you know, I teach filmmaking, obviously, and I think about I'm constantly talking about the protagonist in the story and who's your protagonist and all that stuff. By making films, you become a protagonist of your own story, where you're putting together the pieces of this journey. And whether or not you want to, you're a part of your own film. And so I could see Aaron and I, you know, kind of discussing certain scenes and how we could get things to flow, and trying to figure out try to find the story, which we had plenty there. But sculpting something like that, it's like, I don't know if I'd relate it to therapy or something like that, but finding a story is like the most incredible creative endeavor. And so we both relished in that. I think that's part of the reason why it took us a long time, is because we enjoyed that aspect of it. But seeing something, that took us a really long time finally come together, and the rewards from that of watching Dale, his appreciation of the film. And obviously I think we were able to capture a really unique individual who might be one of the last of his kind, this kind of dandy that lives in this amazing Victorian collection that he made on a shoestring budget, by the way. But I mean, he really lives this life. I mean, we're just fortunate to have stumbled upon him, I think, and got his story.
Similar to what Bobby was saying, as much as we tried to craft a story through the production process, the more we tried to force something, the less it would work. So I think it's just made me have more resolve that you kind of have to just go with the flow with documentary filmmaking. Obviously, you want to go in with a plan and intention, but kind of let things evolve naturally. And then being in the embalming room in his laboratory and being faced with death, it obviously confronts you with your own mortality, and thinking about what you want to do with your body, and after you die, and what is there after life. We just wanted to paint a portrait of a person who you wouldn't normally interact with on a day-to-day basis, and show you the way someone else lives who you might not want to talk to initially, but then you could then you realize how interesting someone can be.
So when Bobby approached you about making the film, were you super hesitant? Was there a little like anxiety before filming? How did you feel going into this?
I think we were both pretty excited. I mean, what's crazy, Aaron said we were there for 48 hours, but I think we had a total of 4 hours of footage or 3 hours of footage. It was so amazing. We could have made almost a feature-length film out of just hanging out with the guy for a few hours. He is a nonstop. I mean, you'll see in the film a volcano of information. Aaron and I would go back and fact check stuff that we were just like, that can't be true. And it was always true. I mean, the guy was just like, he has some dyslexia, and he said when he was younger, he had everything read to him, and he has a photographic memory for what's been told to him or said to him. And so we found, even just filming over the course of 10 years, he would hardly repeat himself. I mean, he would say a few things over and over, but every now and then I would just say, how does this guy retain all this information. It's incredible.
Yeah, he would remember everything he told us to. He was like, "Remember when I told you this?" And yeah, the quotes from poems and history books and the manuals on how to embalm it all. It's all deep inside his brain. But I think, yeah, I think I'm pretty challenge oriented, so I don't think I was too intimidated initially. But yeah, it was exciting from the beginning.
Wow, you guys are really brave. How many hours do you think you spent back there with him in the laboratory, as you call it?
Couple dozen hours. I mean, 12.
Yeah, yeah, I think we ended up with around 150 hours of footage, but of that, maybe less than a quarter of the time was probably actually in the embalming room because we would really try to limit our time back there if we could.
Man. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd go take a call in the back and I'd walk to the casket room and flip the lights on, and they had put bodies back there because there was just so many that they couldn't fit them all in the embalm, and it's just like, oh my God, everywhere you look, it's just a surprise. Yeah, we'd always have to move them out and, make sure everything was covered up and nothing of that was in sight. So, yeah.
I was curious when you said you felt so tense afterwards, how much time you had spent in there, because there's so many amazing shots back there that I figured it was more time than you said, but that makes sense. You made the most of the time that you're back there.
Yeah, and we kind of knew the questions we needed to ask him for each one of those embalming scenes and to help give context for what he's doing.
Okay, on a little bit lighter note, what is one thing that you hope viewers walk away from this film with?
I hope that they think that they see something that they might not have seen otherwise, or that maybe like a glimpse into a world that's like, it's already a hidden and secret profession, and maybe knowing a little bit more about that, but also just going in with an open mind about watching somebody's story. I think, I always think about that Maya Angelou quote, though, that's people remember how you made them feel long after they remember what you said to them. And you're feeling about, you said, like, he's such a charming individual and you think it's going to be this dark funeral thing, but you really come out feeling really fantastic, and lighthearted about the whole thing. So I hope people don't think that it's some scary, morbid thing, and that they give it a chance and go see the film.
Yeah, we actually thought we were gonna uncover some deeper, darker secrets through the process of filming him, and I think we do. I think we want people to feel kind of what we felt. Maybe initially creeped out by him, but really kind of confident that there are people there who really care after you die, whether you want to be embalmed or cremated. Your family who's left to deal with with the death after you die, they have someone like Dale who can help them through that dark time.
So I know you touched on this earlier, but is there any other advice you would have for aspiring filmmakers or documentarians?
With my students, we really spend a lot of time in the first 6 weeks just coming up with ideas and finding a good story to tell, and then thinking about the motivations of the protagonist and knowing that each scene is either going to push them forward in what it is that they want or drive them away from that. And then sometimes the protagonist doesn't even get what they want. Sometimes they get the opposite of that. And so knowing that, our whole collective mindset as a culture is based off of storytelling, and I hope just if you're interested in filmmaking, that you do it, and that there's no excuses as to why you can't do it. You can do it on a cell phone. People have already proven this. And it doesn't even matter if you have good lighting. If the story's there, it needs to be shared and gathered and collected. And then you'll figure out the rest on how to do that, because it'll become necessity.
Do as much pre-production as you can on your story, but use a phone, shoot initial reel, get some buy-in if you need it from other people who can help you make it if you can't shoot it yourself. But just go for it. You need to, if you feel the story needs to be told, then you have to go for it.
And the other thing too, we premiered this film at Austin Film Festival. Just at that one film festival alone, I met about 5 people that I've worked with on other projects on since then. So, going to film festivals, talking to other filmmakers, and you realize that other people are just as willing to help you with your projects as you might be to help them. So, and filmmaking is a team effort too. So find a buddy who likes making a film and help them with theirs, and vice versa.
That's awesome advice. Thank you, guys. So what's next for you?
We are trying to figure out what to do after film festivals. We have some initial interest in trying to get the film out into the world and to so people can stream it. We would love to do another project with Dale. We have ideas for nonfiction and fiction based projects utilizing Dale. Would love to have him host some kind of show of maybe touring around the South. And Bobby's been writing a fiction script with Dale in it, and kind of some of the similar people and scenarios, but way more twisted.
You know, as we were shooting this thing, I thought to myself, I wonder what it would be like if he actually told all the crazy stories that would be hard to weave into a narrative, or, you know, things like that. And I figured that he'd be much more likely to do it under the guise of a narrative. So it'd be fun to play with fact and fiction in the next one and push it a step further. You know, it's like Werner Herzog meets Harmony Korine or something like that. And we love working with Dale. So, you know, Aaron and I have other professions, and I'm also a painter, and I've got some shows upcoming. So I've been spending a lot of time in the studio, but we're really excited to come to the Burbank International Film Festival, because this kind of wraps up our year of film festivals, and we were nominated for Best Documentary. So we're super grateful. We're going to be there in person. We're excited. I mean, we're really excited about it.
Well, thank you both so much for taking the time to speak with me and share about what went into telling this incredible story, Dale's story. And for anyone who would like to see Song of the Cicada, it will be screening at the festival Sunday, September 24th at 3:30 p.m. at the AMC 16 in Burbank, and will be followed by a Q&A with Bobby and Aaron. For tickets and more info, visit burbankfilmfest.org. Thank you guys so much. We really appreciate it, and we're so excited to have you at the festival.
Thank you, Mackenzie. It was an honor. Thank you.
Thank you.